Adapting the Wizard of Oz book by L. Frank Borum was no short of an easy task. Literally. And in today's part 1 of 2 story, we're gonna see how this movie was part of every old studio that just wanted a musical in the 1930s, and how most actors on set had problems off and on set. This is The Complicated History of the Wizard of Oz, Part 1. Chapter 1. The Previous Attempts. In 1900, L. Frank Barum took inspiration from these made-up fantasy stories he told to his kids and friends, and made the book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. If you want to look up what L. Frank Barum did in his life before Oz, please don't. But back on topic, the first attempt of live-action adaptation was a stage play in 1902. L. Frank Barum did write the script, but the guy who was working on it decided to change everything about it, and ended up being a surprising success, with it going on 6 years later. But then there are a lot, and I mean a lot of stuff based on the Oz books. And if I list them all, then we would be here all day. But some examples include the 1910 movie based off the musical and its 2 lost sequels, the 1913 musical play, the Tick-Tock Man of Oz, the 1925 silent film adaptation, and the 1933 animated short film. Now, I may have skipped over some things, but in 1919, L. Frank Barum died from a stroke at the age of 62. And that left more things to happen after his death, but for more info, I would suggest to go to another channel to see what happened. I'm just the worst version that you just randomly found. But from the 1920s to the 30s, Hollywood just didn't want to make more fantasy films. Until Chapter 2. A New Version. Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs changed cinema, not only being the first animated motion picture, but it gave Hollywood the courage to make more fantasy films. After learning this, Louis B. Mayer, one of the co-founders of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer/MGM, wanted to buy the film rights, but at that point it was owned by the other co-owner of MGM, Samuel Goldwyn. I won't even mention how he got it in the first place. But to get the rights, he had to pay $75,000, roughly $1.3 million in today's numbers. He also heard of an up-and-coming actress at MGM named Julie Garland, and thought she was a good choice to play Dorothy. However, many different stories happen that I can't be sure if it's true or not. Some say that Trudy Garland was treated like shit by the studio and her mother. Others say that Mervyn LeRoy asked MGM to just make an Oz adaptation. It was a crazy mess, but eventually, they started production. Chapter 3. Problems Before Filming. Norman Taurog, who won Best Director for his movie Skippy, was chosen as the director of Oz, while other people like Yip Harburg and Harold Allen for the music, who were given the impossible task of making the music more narrative and less standalone like any old musical back then. Then there were the many different scripts. Some of them adapted the stage play, some of them didn't understand the magical elements in the story, and some screenwriters wrote major important scenes that just didn't get any credit, but the script credit went towards Noel Langley and 2 other people that I don't know. Other problems were the casting. Before Judy, the studio really wanted to get Shirley Temple as the role of Dorothy, or really anyone young like Dina Durbin. Like, they were also considered for Dorothy, like other actors, like, I don't know. But Judy still stayed as Dorothy because the people liked her. Other actors that were added, like Ray Bolger as the Scarecrow, Burt Lahr as the Cowardly Lion, and Buddy Epson as the Tin Man, With everyone that they got, they can now start filming. Chapter 4: The Filming Process. Filming started on October 12th, 1938. However, before filming started, Norman Thogg left the project in order to work on another movie he made. Meanwhile, they asked Richard Chope to be the new director, and he said yes. Also, the movie's budget was getting pretty expensive, not only to build massive sets, but also using 3-strip Technicolor film, which was a rarity back in the day. But then there was Gail Sundergaard, the person who was originally supposed to play the Wicked Witch of the West. She left due to her preserving her beauty and she can't be ugly for her role, ew! And so her role was replaced by Margaret Hamilton. But when filming started, the first 12 days became infamous due to many things. 2 sequences were shot, Dorothy meeting Scarecrow and performing If I Only Had a Brain, and the ending was final act at the Witch's Castle where the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion say Dorothy from the Wicked Witch of the West. Alongside other things like Dorothy being blonde, the Yellow Brick Road looking different, and most of the footage ended up being lost media. However, one actor in particular caused problems and almost caused the movie to get shut down. Chapter 5: One Mistake and the Aftermath. Buddy Epson, the actor who played the Tin Man, trust me, it all makes sense, had problems with his makeup. But to be more specific, to make him look like the Tin Man, they had to cover his face with grease paint and aluminum dust. However, the side effect to all of this, he had to breathe it in. And after 10 days, his lungs were powdered with aluminum, aka he can't breathe. So after all of that, he was sent to the hospital for 6 weeks, but the studio heads at MGM questioned if it was still worthy to continue. They were also thinking of just shutting down production altogether, but the producer, Mervyn LeRoy, convinced everyone at MGM to continue the movie with some changes. Mervyn made some major changes, like firing Richard Thorpe as the director because he didn't have that charm like they used to. And they changed to Richard Corcoran after his movie, Gone with the Wind, had its own problems and joined Oz while waiting for reshoots of his film. Other changes were ditching the blonde wig for Dorothy, the Yellow Brick Road looking like an actual Yellow Brick Road, and some makeup changes, especially for the Tin Man, plus other characters like the Scarecrow and the Wicked Witch of the West. Speaking of the Tin Man, Jack Haley was brought on board after Richard left with all of his hospital stuff. And instead of aluminum powder, they used aluminum paste, even if it gave Jack an eye infection and he had to sit in the dark room to be healed back to normal. You know, normal stuff. Mervyn LeRoy really made some changes that everyone liked and thought his version can continue without any, and I mean any, major setbacks. But this was only the beginning of this nightmare. They still had a long Yellow Brick Road ahead of them.